Alright guys, this is the video on the quadratic formula. It's not very difficult. For those of you who are a little more advanced, once I get through here, I would just jump to the last example and then figure it out, but make sure that you watch these notes first. So what we have been doing is we've been solving for the zeros, right? So we have this quadratic function, and we're trying to see where the graph crosses the x-axis. We're looking for these values here. Now, we've been able to find these a couple of different ways. Sometimes you just plug it into the calculator and find the zeros. You could factor it, factor 1 times factor 2, set them equal to 0 and solve for it that way. Sometimes you can't factor it, and it'll be a little bit easier just to plug the numbers into the formula. Now, one thing that I want you guys to keep in mind is that sometimes you won't have zeros. So if your graph is up here, it doesn't cross the x-axis, so that one actually has no zeros. Okay, if your graph is down here, you're also going to have no zeros. Now, sometimes if your vertex is on the x-axis, you have 1, 0. Okay, so I just want you to keep this in mind because we're going to get into that in just a minute. So here's the quadratic formula. Make sure you write it down. These values for A, B, and C just come from the formula in standard form. So all you're going to do is plug in the values. Now, you're going to have up to 2 answers, usually 2, depending on how many, the types of numbers that you put in here, and that's because of this plus or minus. So in the end, you're going to split this up into the plus part and then the minus part. And we'll get into that. Another thing that you need to know, especially for the Khan Academy, is what's called the discriminant. So the discriminant is the square root. It's actually not the square root of all of this, sorry. It's just b squared minus 4ac. b squared minus 4ac, it's the same thing that's in here. Now, this is going to tell you how many solutions you have. Now, remember, you could have 2 solutions, you could have no solutions, or you can have 1. And so just the number in here will tell you how many you have. If this is negative, you're going to have no zeros because you can't take the square root of a negative number. So if you're working through this and you end up like with the square root of -3 or whatever, that means that you're going to have no solutions. It's not going to cross the x-axis. If you get the square root, if this number in here is equal to 0, then you will have 1, 0, 1 solution, 1 root, and the graph is going to look something like this. And then if you get a positive number, you'll have 2 zeros, so it'll cross the x-axis twice. Okay, so this is all the important information that you need to know, and I have 3 examples for you, and they get progressively more difficult. So for those of you who are advanced, go ahead and skip forward towards the last one. Now here you could either try to factor it using A times C. For now, I'm just going to show you how to use the quadratic formula. So we have A is equal to 1, B -4, C is equal to 4. And you're literally just going to plug it in. So we have x is equal to -b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. Now I strongly recommend that you use parentheses, guys, because your calculator is not that smart. When you use parentheses, you'll catch any double negatives, and when you do the squared here in your calculator, it won't give you the wrong answer. So we're going to plug in numbers. So -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. From here, I'm just going to simplify it. So we have positive 4 plus or minus the square root of 4 squared is 16. -4 times 1 is -4 times 4 is -16. All over 2 times 1 is just 2. X is equal to 4 plus or minus the square root of 0 over 2. Now this is going to tell us our discriminant. So our discriminant is 0, which means we are going to have 1 solution. Okay, so we know that the square root of 0 is 0, so all of that's going to cancel out, and we're just going to be left with x is equal to 4 over 2, which is just 2. So that's our root. So if we wanted to sketch, if we wanted to sketch a graph, we know that our vertex is going to be at 2, and that our y-intercept is at 4. Your Axis of symmetry goes right through there, which means we have another point over here somewhere, and that's it. All right. 2 more examples for you. Now, one thing that you should notice right off the bat here is that this is not in standard form, so we need to fix that. Okay, we always want to have 0 on this side. Okay, so it needs to be equal to 0. And then this side over here needs to be in standard form. So we're going to move this 8 over by subtracting it. Please be careful here, because you cannot combine this x term with any of these. So some of you guys might just do this, which is fine, but this is not in standard form, so you need to rewrite it to make sure that it is in standard form, because then your a, b, and c will not be correct. So a is 5, b is -8, c is -16. So then you just plug them into your formula. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2 times a. Plug in your values. Simplify, double negative there, this is x equals +8 plus or minus the square root of 64. 4 times 5, -4 times 5 times -16 is going to give you +320. All over 2 times 5 is 10. Okay, so we know that our discriminant is going to be a positive number. Okay, if we add those two up, it's going to give you 384 over 10. So our discriminant is 384, which means it's a positive number, which means we're going to have 2 roots. Okay, so then I'm just going to take the decimal of that. You can go ahead and plug it in, sorry. And it's going to give you 8 plus or minus approximately 19.6 over 10. So this is where it splits up into the 2. You have 8 plus 19.6 over 10 and 8 minus 19.6 over 10. And that's going to give you 2.78 approximately and -1.16 approximately. So these are your zeros. So now there's a couple of pieces of information that we have. We know that -16 is our y-intercept. So if we wanted to sketch that, we know it's going to cross at -16. We know that we have zeros at 2.78 and at -1.16. So your axis of symmetry is somewhere over here. So your graph is going to look something like that. Okay, that's it for that one. And for the last example, it's just an extension of what we just did. This is not in standard form, so you want to move everything over. I do have an x squared term here, so you want to make sure to combine them. 4 minus 7 is -3, x squared minus 9x plus 62 is equal to +8, minus 8 on each side. Plus 54 is equal to 0, so we know that that is our y-intercept right there, and that our parabola is going to open down because this is negative. So now we have a equal -3, b is equal to -9, and c is equal to 54. Plug everything into your formula. -9, -3, 54 over -3, simplify it, 9 plus or minus the square root of 81 plus 648 all over -6, 9 plus or minus 729 all over -6. Now if you plug this into your calculator, if you take the square root of that, it's actually going to give you 27. Okay, and here we split it up into the 2. 9 plus 27 over -6. 9 minus 27 over -6. Plug that into your calculator. Now you could plug this into your calculator from the beginning. If you want to plug this whole thing in there, that's fine, but be careful to use parentheses. Make sure that your fraction doesn't get funny. So you could skip all this step down here if you want to. This one you'll have to do it twice, one for the plus and one for the minus. So it's really up to you if you want to see it get simplified or if you just want to plug it in. So this is going to give you negative, this is going to give you 36 over negative 6, which is negative 6. And this one's going to give you 3. 9 minus 27 is going to give you negative 18 over, negative 18 over negative 6, which is positive 3. And these are your roots. So if you wanted to sketch this, this would be positive 54 over here as our y-intercept. We have a 0 at negative 6, positive 3. So we have something like this. Nope, that doesn't look right. ¿Qué pasó aquí? Oh, it opens down. Okay. This opens down. So our parabola actually looks something like that. All right. If you have any questions, shoot me a reminder. Ask me tomorrow in class. Here is your practice problem. If you want to work on it, I'll count this as extra credit if you have it ready tomorrow. Other than that, let me know if you have questions or I'll see you tomorrow. You have 2 Khan Academies. Make sure that you have them done.